Everybody, welcome back to another World of Warship Blitz video looking at the new Pan-Asian destroyer line. So in front of us here at tier 7 we have the Gadjah Mada, which is the tier 7 mainline destroyer for the Pan-Asians. So let's go and have a look at some details and then we'll do the customary review. So it's originally a Royal Navy destroyer, commissioned to the Royal Netherlands Navy. Okay, so it's not sure which country this one belongs to, and I'm sure someone in the comments will sort it out for me because I'm not a naval historian. I'm just a guy who likes to blow things up. Right. Okay, so let's do the review of the stats. Now what I'll do here, pardon me everybody, while I go about the business of, no, that's not good. Right, what we'll do is we'll compare it to the other mainline ships. So I'll just have to check that I haven't upgraded them. It's good to see. I don't think I've upgraded the Akatsuki. No, I'll have to get rid of that camouflage though. Can't have that. And the Mahan is looking pretty unupgraded as well. Perfect. Okay then. So just like with the tier 8, this is a relative review. So it's against the unupgraded stats. When everything's upgraded, the numbers will be different, but they'll still be relative to each other anyway. So that's quite a lot of getting set up, wasn't it? So survivability is 12,500. It's got 5% citadel protection, 10% fire and flooding resistant, 4.5 and 3% damage reduction. So let's go have a look. The reference for this would probably be the Mahan. Let's go have a look at that. So I think the Mahan has slightly better damage reduction, slightly more hit points. So this means that the 500 more hit points for the Mahan. Let's compare it with the Akatsuki, which is I suppose the ultimate torpedo boat at tier 7. And here you can see that the Gadjah Mada has 800 more hit points and it has the same damage reduction. So essentially it's got the same sort of protection as an Akatsuki with a few more hit points. Compare it, for example, to the likes of the Minsk. Shows the Minsk has a lot more in the way of hit points. And the Liebherr, again, actually only a few hundred more hit points with the same armour totals. And get rid of that. Right. Okay, so back to the Gadjah Mada. So it's comparable, sort of middle of the pack. I mean, all the destroyers for armour are much of a muchness. It's sort of middle of the pack for hit points, hasn't quite got as many. Well, it's probably near the lower end, to be honest. Right, okay then, so maximum speed, 35 knots, time to full speed, 9 seconds. Traverse speed maximum is 8.9, basically 9 degrees per second with a 3.3 second turn time, which looks pretty standard. Again, the reference here is going to be the Mahan, which goes slightly slower, accelerates 1 second faster to 1 knot slower. It has an 8.8, so it almost has the same traverse speed, but a faster turn time by 0.3 of a second to get that rudder across. So the Gadjah Mada is roughly the equivalent agility as the Mahan. And it comes in a bit slower than the Akatsuki, with similar acceleration, similar traverse speed, exactly the same turn time. We'll just go for one of the brawlers. Well, actually, the brawlers are faster, take a longer time to get up to full speed, and just don't have that same agility. So it's more agile than the Minsk, and I'm pretty sure it'd be more agile than the Liebherr. Well, it's probably on a par. Slightly faster turn time, but the maximum traverse speed for the Liebherr is ever so slightly slower. Anyway, let's get on to the guns. So because they have deep water torpedoes, these Pan-Asian destroyers, the guns is how you defend yourself against other ships. So here, interesting, is a 6-second reload time, nearly 8-kilometer range, 310 HE damage, 3% fire chance, and only slightly more AP damage than a HE, which probably, let's go with the reference, which is the Mahan. So these have 120mm guns. The Mahan has 127, 4-second reload time. So every time that the Gadjah Mada shoots twice, the Mahan has shot 3 times. For 7.2 kilometres, which I think is a bit shorter, exactly the same HE damage and AP damage and fire chance, and exactly the same turret traverse speed. So the Gadjah Mada is the Gadjah Mada is very much a torpedo boat. Let's compare it with probably the weakest of the gunboats, or the weakest guns on the block. 6-second reload. This has a much shorter firing distance of not even 7 kilometres. Has the same damage, a 1% greater fire chance, and a much slower traverse speed. So the Gadjah Mada is actually, its guns aren't really that great. Compare it with the Liebrecht Mass, which has a much weaker HE damage, but much stronger AP damage. 4.5-second reload, so 25% faster. So yeah, so the Gadjah Mada is not a great gunboat, which is going to be interesting because the Fusion actually had okay guns, and the Haising Yan, so the Tier 8 Pan-Asian destroyer actually feels a lot like a Loadout, which has not the best guns, but reasonable guns. In fact, the only downside of the Loadout's guns and the Tier 8 Pan-Asian destroyers guns compared to the Benson is it's got one less of them. It has some AA, and it has a fantastic base surface detection of 6 kilometres. So when we kit this thing up, let's see how much we can pull that sucker down. So 50 and 80 is the AA damage, 6 kilometres is the concealment. I'll go back and do the torpedo shortly. If we compare it with the Liebrecht Mass, well, actually this Liebrecht Mass has got some kit on it, so go figure. Have I gone and used that? Oh, okay. But if basically that Liebrecht Mass, so 6 kilometres for the Gadjah Mada, that's 5.72 kilometres, but the Gadjah Mada, if it put on the same equipment, would come down by 10%, which would be 0.6, which would take it down to 0.54. So still better concealment than Liebrecht Mass, and not as good concealment, well, better concealment than the Akatsuki. What have I been doing with all these destroyers? Putting just one item of modular equipment on them. Exactly the same surface detection as the Mahan. So our reference being the Mahan, it's got the same surface detection. Let's go back and have a look at those torpedoes, because that was a bit of an oversight in a destroyer that's built around torpedoes. So reload time is 61.25 seconds, so basically a minute. So in a 6-minute game, you can shoot 5 times. Now, assuming that it takes you the best part of a minute to get in position, and that you have to rely on the torpedoes to actually travel the distance for the final salvo, you're probably going to get 4 shots out. That's working it. So just be aware it's going to be a little bit like Japanese torpedo boats. You're going to have to, assess the use of these very carefully, and you don't have 3 launches. You have 2 launches, basically, pretty much like the Benson 2x5. Right, anyway, let's have a look. The damage is So the reload time is about a minute. The damage is 3,350. The range is 7.8 kilometers, which looks actually the same as the gun range, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting having the overlapping circles. Torpedo speed is 66.5 knots. The best torpedo boat to compare it with is the Akatsuki. The Akatsuki has a faster reload by about 5 seconds, about the same damage, so 3,400 rather than 3,350, 8.4 kilometre range rather than 7.8, and the same torpedo speed. So they're pretty good torpedoes. They don't quite have the extensive range of the Akatsuki, but to be fair, with the minute reload and at this tier, if you're firing your torpedoes at maximum range every time, you're going to get a lot of misses. Compare it with the Mahan. Mahan has slow torpedoes, very short range, not quite as much damage, and a reasonable reload speed. So the Gadjah Mada is definitely up there with its torpedoes. The Leadbrook Muss has a much faster reload, less damage, a bit less distance, and slightly less speed. So, yeah, so the Gadjah Mada isn't, well, okay, it's a fairly good all-round destroyer. It's just its weakness is that it's not dangerous to other destroyers close by. So what I mean by that is that when you're in a destroyer, and you're in destroyer versus destroyer combat, at the back of your mind, there is always the possibility that the next thing you're going to see is torpedoes, right? So often in a furball, the opportunity for people to put torpedoes in your path is fairly limited. So as long as you're sort of aware of the general ways that people operate with their torpedoes, you can stay out of trouble. But what it means is that if you bring yourself sort of nose in to get point blank or something like that, if you spend, because when I'm fighting another destroyer, I spend a lot of time nose in. You're always closing the distance, and you're always closing the distance. And the problem is, at some point, the distance becomes so close that it becomes impossible to dodge those torpedoes. And opening the distance either means making a move that breaks off and then letting the destroyer get away, or exposing you to a broadside of torpedoes. So with the Gadjah Mada, when I do that nose in, well, actually, I won't have to do that nose in. With the Gadjah Mada, it can just be close in and just deal with it. So this ship is going to be vulnerable to destroyer upon destroyer action. Right, let's load it up with some gear. Auto resupply. We'll give it its historical camouflage, which is very typical. Main battery firing range plus 4%, torpedo range plus 4%, maximum traverse speed plus 4%, which is going to be welcome, and surface detection minus 4%, which I love. That's perfect for me. So definitely concealment, because it's got the same capabilities as the Mahan. I suspect that I would probably quite like that. It doesn't have torpedo reload. So basically, my best option here, I'm taking a punt here. Right, let's go have a look at its elite bonus. Oh, right, let's get it into fighting shape. So of course all those numbers that I've carefully gone through have now massively changed, but it's the comparison that's important so that you can place it. Right. Main battery firing range plus 4%. Oh, that's good. Maximum speed plus 5%. Acceleration plus 10%. Oh, that's also good. I sort of hate it when they've got two really good options. What's its speed? 35 knots. So plus 5% would be taken up by maybe a knot and a half. And the gun range is respectable 8.72 kilometers. And a 4% increase in that is probably about 0.32, would take it up to 9 kilometres. Let's take this and see how we go. Right, it's random battles time, people, so there might be a bit of a wait while I because of the time of night. So I'm not going to go into a cooperative. I'm fairly familiar with the Mahan, and so I'm feeling brave. And if it crashes and burns horribly, then at least you'll get an impression. It'll be my piloting, won't be the ship. The ship seems sound. So, yeah. Now, unfortunately, I'm making this video around about 9 o'clock at night in New Zealand, which means that I think it is something in the order of 6 hours ahead. So it is 4 a.m. in the morning. So all the people that are on the screen are people in the United States that are playing World of Warship Blitz at 4 a.m. in the morning on their phones. So welcome to Insomniac Hours, everybody. Right, golden channel. Okay, so here we go. So let's get some speed going, shall we? Okay, right. Okay, you can't hear the volume that I'm hearing. And 3 guns. Okay, I should have paid attention. That's quite a spread. Ooh, we're going to be missing with a few torpedoes. Okay then, let's get in. I guess, I don't know why people... If you want to learn how to shoot, do cooperative battles. Right, okay, here we are. I'm digging deep in to drag our fleet so that they don't... You can't defend the edge. Oh, here we go. This looks like a likely target. What's that? That's Pensacola. And I'm going to guess that he's going to go around... Okay. Can I get that? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be a bit tactical with my torpedoes. Deep water torpedoes are fast and damaging. And I'm going to fire them in singles, probably around about 30 seconds apart. That Pensacola decided not to brave the... Oh, this looks good. Okay. Oh, now my detection is just insane. I'm nowhere near being detected. It's the Pensacola. Let's just give him something to think about. I'm not really sure I want to let off my 3 pop guns. That's the... well, something's heading down towards that area. So, while we're here, let's talk a little bit about... Oh, that's not good. Let's talk a little bit about the tactics to do with this map. One hit on the Pensacola. Problem. Okay, the ship's comfortable to drive. That's the good news. The bad news is the torpedo spread reminds me a little bit of the Eagle, the Tier 6 French destroyer, in that long-range shots tend to lose a lot of their powers because the torpedoes spread out too much. What's this? Oh, I know. You love being there, don't you? Oh. Let's turn away. Okay then. Well, if you want that, you know what? Take a shot. Take your best shot, because it'll be the last thing you do. Right. Oh, unless, of course, you slow down, in which case... Oh. Ouch. It's called being targeted by a cruiser. Rather. Okay then. So we'll hide down the back until our concealment circle drops back down, and then we'll just take stealth shots. I've got 2 minutes to go, so I've got 2 shots left, or 4. I've got 4 shots left. I'm going to have to say that the deep water torpedoes are very good at discouraging that sort of incursion. Okay. What do we got? Anybody? Everybody's keeping their distance. It's good. That's the way it ought to be. You can see that we've got lost even numbers of ships. Well, not quite now. Okay, I'm going to have to dig out the other end. Okay, it's good that we've got a bit of a... oh, what's that Nagato doing? Let's put our guns out. Okay, then give you one there, and then we'll just... oh, hello. That wasn't the Nagato I was aiming for. Oh, this should be impressive. Sorry, mate. It's going to hurt you a whole lot more than it's going to hurt me. But it doesn't actually hurt that much. Oh, although they've got the legs on them. Got 27 seconds remaining. I've just got to stay out of his range. Because he's going to be... what's he doing? Is he slowing down? You see, this is the problem he's got. I've got all day. Well, I haven't actually. I've got 25 seconds. Come on. And then we'll give him one there. Oh. Well, okay then. Yes. So talk a little bit about tactics in the final seconds of the game, and that is... oh. That the golden channel, with the golden channel, if you're in there with a destroyer, there are no flanks. So the idea of flanking it with a destroyer is an odd one, because if you're in there, basically you have what I'd call a porcupine strategy, where whichever direction the enemy approaches, they are having to drive into torpedoes. Never a good look. Fantastic amounts of damage for what was actually a fairly, well, that was a fairly slow game. So that was fairly sedate. I was pretty relaxed through that. Yeah, 51, so came third. Our battleships, unsurprisingly, in that sort of game, were plugging away pretty consistently. 12 torpedo hits, which did the lion's share of the damage, with flooding a close second. So 2 floods, obviously at the right time, 1 capture. So my impression of the ship is that between the Fusion and the Tier 8, let's go help myself out here. So between the Fusion and the Xianyang, the Gadjah Mada just feels a little bit like the poor cousin. So maybe one of those ships that people fairly have to grind through. It just doesn't have the firepower and the spread on those torpedoes. Close range, those torpedoes will be devastating. Don't expect to get close to a lot of things unless your matchmaking's really truly in your favour. So I'd probably say on the grind the way through to the Tier 10s on the Pan Asians when they all come out, the Tier 7 is probably going to be one of the weaker points. That's just my impression. It does drive comfortably, you know, and the guns, well, they feel pretty familiar, and it's got all the tools like the smoke to disengage. It's got fantastic concealment, but it just doesn't quite have what the Fusion and the Xianyang had. So there you go. There's an opinion for you. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.